How does one bold move at a dinner table turn into the lawful end of a marriage? Can a moment of public confidence really lead to divorce papers on the courthouse steps? What did I miss when I thought I controlled the story, until he calmly handed me the evidence? The champagne bubbles caught the candlelight as I raised my glass, watching Jonah's face across our anniversary dinner table. He looked tired, worn down by another year of teaching 7th grade math to kids who'd rather be anywhere else. His brown hair had more grey threading through it now, and those laugh lines around his eyes seemed deeper, though he hadn't been laughing much lately. "To 5 years," I said, my voice carrying that bright tone I'd perfected for social media posts. "And to keeping things interesting." Jonah clinked his glass against mine, but his smile felt automatic. "To us, Rummer, whatever that means anymore." I should have paid attention to that last part, but I was too busy scanning the restaurant. The Meridian was the kind of place that attracted the right crowd, successful people who understood that marriage didn't have to mean becoming invisible. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, the black dress that showed just enough, the jewelry that caught attention without screaming for it. "You know what I love about this place?" I said, pulling out my phone to snap a quick photo of our table. "It's where people come when they want to be seen." "Or when they want to have a quiet dinner with their wife," Jonah replied, but I was already editing the photo, adjusting the filter to make the lighting more dramatic. That's when I saw Felix walking toward our table. Felix Arden had joined our nonprofit 6 months ago as the new development coordinator, and he'd brought an energy to the office that had been missing for years. While everyone else trudged through their days in business casual and resignation, Felix moved through the world like he owned it. Tonight, he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Jonah made in a month. "Rummer Vale," he said, stopping at our table with that smile that made board members write bigger checks. "I thought that was you. You look absolutely stunning tonight." I felt a flush of warmth that had nothing to do with the wine. "Felix, what a coincidence. This is my husband, Jonah." Felix extended his hand, and Jonah shook it with the same enthusiasm he'd show a tax audit. "Nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you." "All good things, I hope," Felix said, but his eyes were on me, not Jonah. "Rummer talks about work constantly," Jonah said. There was something in his voice I couldn't quite place. "Especially about how much more exciting it's gotten lately." I laughed, the sound coming out brighter and more musical than usual. "Felix has been such an inspiration to the whole team. He's completely transformed how we approach donor relations." "Among other things," Jonah muttered. Felix either didn't hear or chose to ignore the comment. "I was just meeting some potential sponsors for the spring gala. Speaking of which, Rummer, I wanted to run some ideas by you about the venue setup. Do you have a few minutes?" Before I could answer, he was sliding into the booth next to me. Not across from us where there was an empty chair, but right next to me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something expensive and confident that made Jonah's drugstore aftershave seem suddenly inadequate. "The spring gala is months away," Jonah said. "The best events require the most planning," Felix replied smoothly. He pulled out his phone and leaned closer to me, his shoulder brushing mine. "I was thinking we could create different zones throughout the space. More intimate settings where donors feel special, valued." His hand gestured as he talked, and somehow it ended up resting on my lower back. Just for a moment, just long enough for me to feel the warmth of his palm through the thin fabric of my dress. I should have moved away. I should have created distance. Instead, I found myself leaning slightly into the touch, my body responding before my brain could catch up. "That sounds innovative," I heard myself say. "Very hands-on approach." Jonah's fork clinked against his plate, the sound sharp in the sudden tension. Felix's hand moved to my waist as he turned to show me something on his phone screen. "See, if we arrange the silent auction items in a spiral pattern, it creates natural flow. People move through the space more organically, more intimately." The word hung in the air between us. I was acutely aware of everything, Felix's hand warm against my hip, the way other diners were starting to notice our table, the muscle jumping in Jonah's jaw as he watched his wife being touched by another man in public. And God help me, I liked it. Not just Felix's attention, though that was intoxicating in a way I hadn't felt in years, but the whole situation, the public nature of it, the way I could feel eyes on us, the knowledge that people were seeing Ruma Vale as someone worth pursuing, someone worth the risk. "We should probably let you get back to your dinner," Jonah said, his voice carefully controlled. "Of course," Felix said, but he didn't move away immediately. His hand lingered on my waist for another heartbeat before he slid out of the booth. "Ruma, we'll continue this conversation at the office." "Definitely," I said, my voice breathier than I'd intended. After Felix left, the silence at our table felt thick enough to cut. Jonah methodically finished his salmon while I posted the photo I'd taken earlier, adding the caption, "Anniversary dinner with my love. Some nights are just perfect. Tasa blessed Chushao anniversary dinner cheat on living my best life." "Interesting choice of words," Jonah said, without looking up from his plate. "What do you mean?" "Perfect. Is that what you'd call tonight?" I set my phone down and really looked at my husband for the first time all evening. His face was calm, but I knew him well enough to recognize the signs of anger he was trying to contain. The way his shoulders held tension, the careful precision of his movements. "Jonah, if you're upset about Felix stopping by, am I upset that your coworker put his hands on you in a restaurant full of people while I sat here watching? What do you think, Ruma? He was just being friendly. You're reading too much into it. His hand was on your waist, in public, while you leaned into it." The accusation in his voice sparked something defensive in me. "So what if it was? Felix is a colleague and a friend. Just because you're threatened by successful, confident men doesn't mean I should limit my professional relationships." Jonah's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "Threatened? You heard me. Felix brings energy and excitement to everything he touches. Maybe if you showed half that much enthusiasm about anything in your life, I wouldn't find other people's passion so refreshing." It was a cruel thing to say, and I knew it the moment the words left my mouth. But instead of apologizing, I doubled down. "I'm tired of walking on eggshells around your insecurities, Jonah. Felix treats me like an intelligent, attractive woman instead of just another piece of furniture in his life." Jonah set down his fork and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, exactly. Something colder and more calculating. "You're right," he said quietly. "We should definitely continue this conversation at home." The drive back to our apartment was silent, except for the GPS directions and the sound of my phone buzzing with likes and comments on my anniversary post. Marina Doss, my friend from college, had written, "You two are relationship goals. That dress is fire." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. Several other friends had chimed in with heart emojis and comments about how lucky Jonah was. The validation felt good, a counterpoint to the tension radiating from the driver's seat. But when we got home, and I saw Jonah pull out a small notebook and start writing in it, something cold settled in my stomach. "What are you doing?" "Just making some notes," he said without looking up. "About tonight, the restaurant, the time, what happened." "Notes about what?" "Details. I'm starting to think details might be important." He finished writing and closed the notebook, then looked at me with that same calculating expression from the restaurant. "Ruma, I need you to understand something. What happened tonight wasn't about Felix being friendly or professional, and it wasn't about my insecurities." "Then what was it about?" "It was about you making a choice, in public, in front of me." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was perfectly calm. "I just want to make sure I remember exactly how that choice looked." He walked toward his study, then stopped at the doorway. "Oh, and Ruma, Next time you decide to test my reaction to something, you might want to consider that I'm better at math than you think, including the kind that involves calculating consequences. The door to his study clicked shut, leaving me alone in our living room with my phone full of congratulations and a growing sense that I'd just crossed a line I hadn't even known existed. I woke up the next morning to 17 new likes on my anniversary post and the sound of Jonah's printer running in his study. The door was closed, which wasn't unusual, but something about the mechanical whirring made my skin crawl. Maya was already at the kitchen table, carefully arranging her cereal by color before eating it. At 6 years old, she had Jonah's methodical nature and his dark eyes, but lately, those eyes had been watching her parents with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "Daddy left early," she announced without looking up from her bowl. "He probably had papers to grade," I said, pouring coffee and checking my phone. A few more comments had come in overnight, including one from Felix. "Hope you had a wonderful evening. Looking forward to our conversation today." The comment felt intimate, like a secret shared in public view. I liked it immediately and added a response. Some conversations are worth waiting for. "Mummy, why was Daddy writing in his book last night?" I looked up from my phone to find Maya studying me with those serious dark eyes. "What book, honey?" "The little one. He was writing and looking at his computer. He looked sad." Something twisted in my chest, but I pushed it away. "Daddy wasn't sad, Maya. Sometimes grown-ups just have things to think about." "Are you getting divorced?" The question hit me like cold water. "What? No, why would you ask that?" "Sarah's parents got divorced, and first they stopped talking to each other, like you and Daddy." I knelt down next to her chair, smoothing her dark hair. "Maya, sweetheart, Daddy and I are not getting divorced. We just had a little disagreement last night. All married people have disagreements sometimes." She nodded solemnly, but I could see she wasn't entirely convinced. As I got ready for work, I found myself thinking about Jonah's notebook and the printer running so early in the morning. What could he possibly need to document? The non-profit office buzzed with its usual Monday morning energy, but I felt eyes on me as I walked to my desk. Nate Collins, one of the program coordinators, gave me a knowing smile. "Saw your anniversary post," he said. "You and Jonah looked happy." "We are happy," I replied automatically. And Felix seemed to think so too, based on his comment. There was something in Nate's voice that made me look at him more carefully. He was grinning like someone who knew a secret. "Felix and I work together, Nate. Professional colleagues comment on each other's posts all the time." "Sure they do, especially when the post is about anniversary dinners with their husbands." Before I could respond, Felix appeared at my desk with 2 cups of coffee from the expensive place down the street. "Thought you might need some real coffee after last night," he said, setting 1 cup down in front of me. "You seemed a little tense when I left." "Jonah doesn't like surprises," I said, accepting the coffee gratefully. Maybe Jonah needs to get used to the fact that his wife is an attractive, intelligent woman who other people enjoy spending time with. The compliment warmed me more than the coffee. When was the last time Jonah had called me attractive? When was the last time he'd brought me expensive coffee just because he was thinking of me? "He's just protective," I said, but the word felt wrong even as I said it. "Possessive, you mean?" "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Felix leaned against my desk, close enough that I could smell his cologne again. "Rama, you're wasted in that marriage. You have so much life, so much passion, and he treats you like you should be grateful for his attention instead of the other way around." I wanted to defend Jonah, but the words wouldn't come. Because wasn't Felix right? Didn't I deserve someone who appreciated what I brought to the table? "We should focus on work," I said, but I didn't move away when Felix leaned closer. "Of course. But Rama, last night when I touched you, when you leaned into me, that wasn't about work. And we both know it." He walked away before I could respond, leaving me staring at the expensive coffee and feeling like I was standing at the edge of a cliff. The rest of the morning passed in a haze of emails and phone calls, but I couldn't stop thinking about Felix's words. By lunch, I'd convinced myself that he was right. Jonah was possessive. He did take me for granted. And maybe it was time I stopped apologizing for being the kind of woman who attracted attention. I posted a new photo on Instagram, a selfie with the coffee Felix had brought me. The caption read, "When someone appreciates the real you." A grateful, new perspectives, jar living authentic. The likes started coming immediately, along with comments asking who the coffee was from and whether everything was okay at home. I answered selectively, liking the comments that supported my independence and ignoring the ones that seemed concerned. Marina called during my lunch break. "Rama, honey, I saw your post today. Is everything okay with you and Jonah?" "Everything's fine. Better than fine, actually. I'm just tired of shrinking myself to make other people comfortable." "What does that mean?" I found myself telling her about Felix, about how he made me feel alive and appreciated in ways Jonah hadn't in years. Marina listened without interrupting, but I could hear the concern in her silence. "Rama, be careful. I know Jonah can be quiet and serious, but he loves you, and you have Maya to think about." "I'm not doing anything wrong," I said, defensive. "Felix and I are friends, colleagues. Just because Jonah is insecure doesn't mean I should limit my professional relationships." "Is that really all it is? Professional?" The question hung between us. I wanted to say yes, to convince both Marina and myself that this was innocent. But the truth was more complicated. "I have to go," I said. "I'll talk to you later." That evening, Jonah was in his study again when I got home. The door was closed, but I could hear him on the phone with someone, his voice too low for me to make out the words. When he emerged for dinner, he seemed distracted, almost absent. "How was work?" I asked, trying to sound normal. "Fine, productive. I got a lot of documentation done." There was that word again. Documentation. "What kind of documentation?" "Just organizing some files, making sure everything is properly recorded." He looked at me across the dinner table, and I had the unsettling feeling that he was studying me, cataloging details I couldn't see. "Rama, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest." My heart started beating faster. "Okay. Are you having an affair?" The question was so direct, so calm, that it caught me completely off guard. "What? No, Jonah, how can you ask me that?" "Because of the way you acted last night. Because of the way you're acting now. Because of the way you talk about Felix, and the way he touches you in public. He doesn't... We're not..." I struggled to find words that were technically true. "Felix is a colleague and a friend, that's all. But you're attracted to him." It wasn't a question. Jonah said it like he was stating a mathematical fact, something provable and undeniable. "I'm married to you," I said, instead of answering directly. "That's not what I asked." The silence stretched between us. Maya was in her room doing homework. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator, and my husband was looking at me like I was a problem he was trying to solve. "Jonah, you're being paranoid. Just because I have a male friend who treats me with respect and appreciation doesn't mean I'm cheating on you." "Respect and appreciation," he repeated. "Is that what you call it when he puts his hands on you in restaurants? You're twisting everything, making innocent interaction sound sordid." "Am I?" He pulled out his phone and showed me something that made my blood run cold. It was a photo, taken from across the restaurant the night before. Felix and I in the booth, his hand on my waist, me leaning into him, both of us smiling while Jonah sat across from us, looking like a stranger at his own anniversary dinner. "Where did you get that?" "Someone posted it online, tagged the restaurant, tagged you. It's gotten quite a few likes." I stared at the photo, seeing it through other people's eyes for the first time. We looked like lovers. There was no other way to interpret the body language, the intimacy of the moment. "This doesn't prove anything," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. "Doesn't it?" Jonah took his phone back and stood up from the table. Rama, I want you to know that I've been documenting everything. Every late night at the office, every mysterious phone call, every social media post. I've been keeping very careful records. Records of what? Of my wife's affair. I told you I'm not having an affair. Then you won't mind if I look through your phone. The request hit me like a physical blow. My phone was full of text messages with Felix, photos we'd taken together at work events, comments and likes on each other's posts that could easily be misinterpreted by someone looking for evidence of wrongdoing. That's a violation of privacy, I said, for married people. For anyone, I'm not handing over my phone like some teenager who broke curfew. Jonah nodded slowly, like I'd just confirmed something he'd suspected. Okay, Rama, I understand. He walked toward his study, then paused at the doorway. Just so you know, I've already spoken to a lawyer, just to understand my options, and I've started backing up all our financial records, social media posts, text message logs from the phone bill, everything. You've spoken to a lawyer. I told you I'm good at math, including the kind that involves calculating the cost of betrayal. The study door closed behind him, leaving me alone with the dinner dishes and the growing realization that my husband wasn't just hurt or jealous, he was preparing for war. The rooftop event space at the Meridian Hotel was perfect for the quarterly donor appreciation reception. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and the late afternoon sun cast everything in golden light that would look amazing in photos. I'd spent weeks planning every detail, and tonight felt like my chance to prove that I could handle high-profile events without anyone's help. Felix found me near the silent auction display, adjusting the lighting on a donated art piece. Everything looks incredible, he said, appearing at my shoulder with that easy confidence that always made me feel more attractive, more capable. You've outdone yourself. I wanted tonight to be special, I replied, smoothing my red dress. I'd chosen it specifically because it photographed well, and because Jonah had never complimented me when I wore it. Our donors deserve to feel valued. Speaking of valued, Felix moved closer, his voice dropping to that intimate tone that made my skin tingle. You look absolutely stunning tonight. I felt the familiar rush of warmth, the intoxicating feeling of being seen and appreciated. Around us, donors mingled with champagne glasses and admiring comments about the venue, the view, the atmosphere I'd created. Felix, we should probably what? Pretend we don't have chemistry. Pretend I don't think about you constantly. His hand found my lower back, the touch sending electricity through me despite the public setting. Or maybe because of it. There was something thrilling about the risk, the knowledge that anyone could see us, could witness this moment of connection. The donors are watching, I whispered, but I didn't pull away. Let them watch. Let them see how a woman like you should be treated. I glanced around the room and caught several people looking in our direction. Board members, major donors, colleagues from other non-profits. Some smiled approvingly, others looked curious, a few seemed concerned. And then I saw Jonah. He stood near the entrance, still in his teaching clothes, khakis and a button-down that had seen better days, looking completely out of place among the cocktail dresses and tailored suits. He must have come straight from school, probably to surprise me or show support for the event. Instead, he was watching his wife being touched by another man in a room full of the city's philanthropic elite. Our eyes met across the crowded space, and I saw something in his expression that made my stomach drop. Not anger, not hurt, something colder and more final. But Felix was still talking, his hand still warm against my back, and the attention felt too good to give up. Rama, I need to tell you something, Felix said, his voice urgent in a way that made me focus entirely on him. I'm falling for you. I know it's complicated, I know you're married, but I can't pretend anymore. The confession hit me like champagne bubbles, effervescent and intoxicating. When was the last time someone had fallen for me? When was the last time I'd felt this desired, this pursued? Felix, I know you feel it too. The way you look at me, the way you respond when I touch you. We're meant for something more than stolen moments and professional pretense. He was right. I did feel it. The attraction, the connection, the sense that I was finally awake after years of sleepwalking through my marriage. What are you saying? I'm saying life is short, and we deserve to be happy. Both of us. His hand moved to my waist, pulling me slightly closer. Around us, conversations continued, glasses clinked, donors wrote checks. But all I could focus on was the man in front of me, telling me everything I'd been longing to hear. Felix, Just think about it, he said, leaning close enough that his breath tickled my ear. Think about what it would be like to be with someone who sees your worth, who appreciates everything you are. I was so lost in the moment that I didn't notice the phone cameras until it was too late. Nate Collins was recording from near the bar, his phone held at the perfect angle to capture Felix's hand on my waist, my face tilted toward his. The intimate nature of our conversation. Behind him, other people had their phones out too, some recording, others taking photos. Nate, what are you doing? He grinned and lowered his phone. Just capturing the moment. This is definitely going to get some attention online. Delete that. Come on, Rummer, you look great. Very authentic. Before I could respond, he was already uploading the video to his Instagram story, tagging me, Felix, and the non-profit. Within minutes, it would be seen by hundreds of people, including everyone who followed our organization's social media accounts, including Jonah. I looked around for my husband, but he was gone, vanished as quietly as he'd appeared, leaving me standing in a room full of witnesses to my public display of infidelity. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and networking conversations. Several donors made comments about how close Felix and I seemed, their voices carrying undertones I couldn't quite interpret. Board members asked pointed questions about our working relationship, and I found myself deflecting and explaining in ways that only made things worse. By the time I got home, the video had been shared dozens of times. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications, likes, comments, shares, and messages from friends asking if everything was okay with my marriage. Jonah was in his study with the door closed. I could hear him on the phone again, his voice low and serious. Jonah? I knocked softly. Can we talk? The conversation stopped, and after a moment the door opened. My husband looked at me with that same calculating expression I'd been seeing more often lately. How was the event? It was successful. We raised a lot of money. I'm sure you did. I saw some of the footage online. My cheeks burned. Jonah, that video makes things look worse than they are. Does it? Felix and I were just talking. About work. People are reading too much into it. People are reading body language, Rummer, and body language doesn't lie. He stepped aside, and I could see his desk covered with printed emails, screenshots, and what looked like a timeline written in his precise handwriting. What is all this? Documentation, evidence, a very clear picture of what's been happening over the past few months. I moved closer, trying to read the papers, but Jonah stepped between me and the desk. Evidence of what? Of my wife's affair. I keep telling you I'm not having an affair. Then explain the video. Explain the text messages between you and Felix that show up on our phone bill. Explain the social media posts, the coffee dates, the way you light up every time someone mentions his name. I felt trapped, cornered by facts I couldn't deny and implications I wasn't ready to face. Felix and I are friends, close friends. That doesn't make it an affair. What would you call it then? The question hung in the air between us. What would I call it? The attraction was undeniable. The emotional connection was real. The physical chemistry was obvious to anyone with eyes. But we hadn't slept together. We hadn't even kissed. Technically, I wasn't cheating. I'd call it a friendship that makes you uncomfortable because you're not used to me having relationships outside of our marriage. Jonah nodded slowly. Okay, let's go with that explanation. He returned to his desk and made a note on his timeline. What are you writing? Just documenting your response to being confronted with evidence of inappropriate behavior, for the record. What record? Jonah, you're scaring me. He looked up from his writing, and for a moment, I saw a flash of the man I'd married. Hurt, vulnerable, hoping I'd say something to make this all make sense. Rama, I love you. I've loved you for 7 years, but I won't be made a fool of. Not publicly, not privately, not by my own wife. You're not being made a fool of. Aren't I? There's a video of you and Felix circulating online that's been viewed thousands of times. People are commenting about how obvious it is that you're cheating on me. My colleagues have seen it. My students' parents have seen it. Everyone knows that Jonah Vale's wife prefers the company of other men. The pain in his voice cut through my defensiveness, but I was too far down this path to turn back now. If you're embarrassed by my friendships, maybe you should ask yourself why you're not enough for me anymore. It was a cruel thing to say, designed to hurt him as much as his accusations were hurting me. And it worked. I saw him flinch like I'd slapped him. You're right, he said quietly. I should definitely ask myself that question. He made another note on his timeline, then looked at me with eyes that held no warmth at all. Rama, I want you to understand something. I'm not going to fight for a marriage that only one person wants to be in. But I'm also not going to pretend that what's happening here is normal or acceptable. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm protecting myself and my daughter, legally, financially, and emotionally. Your daughter? Maya is our daughter. Is she? Because lately it feels like you've checked out of this family entirely. The accusation stung because it held a grain of truth. I had been distracted lately, caught up in the excitement of Felix's attention and the validation of feeling desired again. I'm still Maya's mother. Yes, you are, and that's something the courts will have to consider when the time comes. The courts? Jonah, what are you talking about? But he'd already turned back to his papers, dismissing me as effectively as if he'd closed the door in my face. I went to bed that night with my phone buzzing beside me, notifications streaming in as the video continued to spread across social media. Some comments were supportive, calling me brave for following my heart. Others were harsh, calling me a cheater and a bad mother. But the one that haunted me was from Marina. Rama, honey, I'm worried about you. This doesn't look like the friend you described. Please call me. I turned off my phone and stared at the ceiling, listening to Jonah moving around in his study until well past midnight. Whatever he was doing in there, whatever he was planning, I had the sinking feeling that I'd already lost control of the narrative I'd been trying so hard to write. Rosa's Italian Kitchen had been hosting our monthly family dinners for 3 years, ever since Maya had declared it her favorite restaurant because they gave her extra breadsticks and let her color on the tablecloth. Tonight, the familiar red-checkered tables and warm lighting felt less welcoming, more like a stage where I'd have to perform normalcy for an audience that was becoming increasingly skeptical. Maya sat between Jonah and me, carefully arranging her crayons by color while we waited for the others to arrive. She'd been quieter lately, more watchful, and I caught her studying our faces like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Is Aunt Lydia coming tonight? She asked, not looking up from her coloring. Yes, sweetheart, and Grandma Rosa too. Good, I made them pictures. She held up her drawing, a stick figure family standing in front of a house. But something was wrong with the proportions. The father figure was tiny and grey, barely visible next to the much larger mother figure, who was bright yellow and smiling. A small figure that must have been Maya stood closer to the father, reaching toward him with outstretched arms. That's beautiful, honey, I said, but the image made my stomach clench. Jonah studied the drawing over Maya's shoulder. I like how you use different colors for everyone. Daddy, why are you so small in my picture? The question hung in the air. Jonah looked at me, then back at Maya. Sometimes when we're sad, we feel smaller than we really are. Are you sad, Daddy? Sometimes, baby girl, but not when I'm with you. Rosa arrived first, my mother moving through the restaurant with the brisk efficiency of someone who'd spent 40 years managing other people's problems. At 57, she still dyed her hair the same auburn shade she'd worn in college, and her sharp eyes missed nothing. Rama, you look tired, she said, kissing my cheek. And thin. Are you eating? I'm fine, Mum. Just busy with work. She settled into her chair and immediately focused on Maya, asking about school and friends with genuine interest. But I caught her glancing between Jonah and me, cataloguing the careful distance we maintained, the way we avoided eye contact. Lydia arrived 10 minutes later, Jonah's aunt sweeping in with the dramatic flair of someone who'd spent 30 years teaching high school theatre. At 62, she was all silver hair and bold jewelry, with opinions she'd never learned to keep to herself. There's my favourite great-niece, she announced, hugging Maya tightly. And my favourite nephew-in-law, she added, kissing Jonah's cheek with obvious affection. Her greeting to me was noticeably cooler. Rama. We ordered our usual dishes, chicken parmesan for Maya, lasagna for Rosa, the seafood special for Lydia. I chose a salad, claiming I wasn't very hungry, while Jonah ordered his standard spaghetti and meatballs. So, Rosa said once the server had left, how's work going for everyone? School's good, Jonah replied. My students are preparing for state testing, so we're reviewing a lot of fundamentals. And you, Rama, how's the non-profit world? I felt all eyes turned to me and tried to project confidence. Actually, things have been really exciting lately. We've been implementing some innovative approaches to donor relations, and it's already showing results. Innovative approaches, Lydia repeated, her voice carrying a note I didn't like. Is that what we're calling it? I'm sorry? Oh, honey, you don't think word doesn't travel? My friend Margaret sits on the board of 3 different non-profits in this city. She was at your little rooftop event. My cheeks burned. The donor appreciation reception was very successful. I'm sure it was. Margaret said it was quite memorable. Rosa looked between us, clearly sensing tension but not understanding its source. What happened at the reception? Nothing happened, I said quickly. We raised more money than any previous event, and the donors had a wonderful time. Including your new colleague, Lydia continued relentlessly. What's his name? Felix? Maya looked up from her colouring at the mention of Felix's name. She'd heard it enough around the house to recognise it, and I saw her glance between the adults with growing confusion. Felix is our development coordinator, I said, trying to keep my voice level. He's been instrumental in improving our fundraising efforts. Among other things, I'm sure. Lydia, what exactly are you implying? I'm not implying anything, dear. I'm stating facts. Margaret showed me the video that's been making the rounds on social media. The one where you and this Felix character look very close. Rosa's eyebrows shot up. What video? Before I could answer, Lydia had her phone out, scrolling through her social media feeds with the determination of someone who'd been waiting for this moment. Here it is, posted by someone named Nate from your office. She turned the phone toward Rosa, and I watched my mother's expression change as she saw the footage of Felix's hand on my waist, my face tilted toward his, the obvious intimacy of our interaction. Rama, Rosa said quietly, what is this? It's a conversation between colleagues that someone recorded without permission and posted online to create drama. Colleagues, Lydia snorted, is that what we're calling adultery now? I am not committing adultery. The words came out louder than I'd intended, causing other diners to look in our direction. Maya's crayon stopped moving. What's adultery? The question hit the table like a bomb. 4 adults stared at a 6-year-old who just asked her mother to define infidelity, and the silence stretched until it became unbearable. It's when married people break their promises to each other, Jonah said finally, his voice gentle but his eyes fixed on me. When they choose other people over their family. Did Mommy break her promise? Another silence. Rosa reached over and squeezed Maya's hand. Sweetheart, why don't you go wash your hands before dinner comes? The bathroom is right over there. Maya looked around the table at all the tense adult faces, then gathered her crayons and left without argument. The moment she was out of earshot, Lydia leaned forward. Rama, I've known you since you were Maya's age, and I've watched you make some questionable choices over the years. But this is beyond anything I thought you were capable of. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I see a woman who's throwing away a good marriage and humiliating her husband in public for what? Some excitement? Some attention from a man who's probably married himself? Felix isn't married, and I'm not throwing anything away. Then what do you call flirting with other men while your husband watches? What do you call posting photos and videos that make it clear you're emotionally invested in someone who isn't your spouse? Rosa held up a hand. Let me see that video again. Lydia passed her the phone, and my mother watched the footage with the same careful attention she'd once given to my report cards and college applications. When it finished, she looked at me with disappointment that cut deeper than Lydia's anger. Rama, this doesn't look good. Mom, you're seeing what you want to see. Felix and I work together. We're friends. Just because we have a good professional relationship doesn't mean... Professional relationships don't look like that, Rosa interrupted. That man has his hands on you like he owns you, and you're letting him, in public, while your husband watches. Jonah is insecure and possessive. He sees threats where none exist. Does he? Lydia turned to Jonah, who'd been silent through most of the exchange. What do you see when you look at that video? Jonah was quiet for a long moment, his hands folded carefully on the table. When he spoke, his voice was calm but tired. I see my wife choosing someone else, publicly, repeatedly. That's not... Rama, stop. The sharpness in Rosa's voice surprised me. Just stop talking and listen to yourself. You're defending behavior that would embarrass a teenager, and you're doing it in front of your daughter. Maya doesn't understand any of this. Doesn't she? She just asked us to define adultery. She drew a picture where her father is tiny and sad. You think children don't pick up on tension between their parents? Maya returned to the table as our food arrived, and the conversation shifted to safer topics. But the damage was done. I could feel the judgment radiating from both Rosa and Lydia, and Jonah's silence felt heavier than any accusation. Halfway through dinner, my phone buzzed with a text from Felix. Thinking about you. Hope you're having a good evening with family. I should have ignored it. Should have put my phone away and focused on the people at the table. Instead, I found myself typing back, family dinner. Wish I was somewhere else. His response came immediately. Say the word and I'll rescue you. Jonah's words landed like a quiet thunderclap. Divorce papers, primary custody, public service at my office, tomorrow in front of Felix and everyone. I stared at the thick stack he'd left on the coffee table, the legal headings blurring through sudden tears. 7 months of late-night texts, lingering coffees, and harmless flirtation had led to this moment. I'd told myself it was just attention, just feeling seen again. But Jonah had watched it happen, piece by piece, and now he was done waiting. I picked up my phone to text Felix, some plea for advice, reassurance, anything. The screen showed his last message from dinner. Your family sounds exhausting. You deserve better. I froze. Better. That's what he always said. Better than Jonah's quiet steadiness. Better than family dinners and bedtime stories and mortgage payments. Better than the man who'd just tucked our daughter in and asked her not to worry about him being sad and small. I deleted the thread. Then I blocked his number. It felt too late, but it was the only thing that felt real. I walked to the study door and knocked softly. Jonah. Silence. I blocked him, permanently. I'm deleting everything tomorrow. The messages, the photos, all of it. Still nothing. I don't want the papers served at work. Please. Not in front of Maya's school friends' parents, not in front of him. I'll sign whatever you need, but don't make it a spectacle. I did that to you once. I won't let it happen again. The door opened slowly. Jonah looked exhausted, eyes red. Why should I believe you this time? Because I finally heard my mother tonight, and Maya, and you. My voice cracked. I don't want better. I want us, the real us, not the version I turned into content for someone else's ego. He studied me for a long moment. I'm not tearing up the papers tonight, he said quietly, but I won't have them served tomorrow either. We'll go to counseling, real counseling, not just one session for show. You quit the job if Felix is still there. And we tell Maya the truth together, in an age-appropriate way, about why things have been hard. I nodded, tears spilling over. That's fair, more than fair. He exhaled, shoulders dropping slightly. I don't know if we can fix this, Rama, but for Maya and maybe for the woman I married, I'm willing to try once more. One chance. That's all. I reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a beginning. And for the first time in months, I understood that the steady love I'd almost thrown away was the only kind worth fighting for.